A broken or chipped tooth is the beginning of serious consequences that few people suspect. Imagine that your jaw is gradually changing shape, but you don't notice it. And after a year, you suddenly realize that your face is distorted and looks different. But the scariest part is that some people walk around for years with fragments of a tooth, not realizing that irreversible processes are already happening inside. I'll tell you what will happen to you if you keep walking around with a tooth like that. How can you avoid the consequences? I'll talk about all of this in this video. The first thing we need to start with is the structure of the tooth. What is a tooth made of? A tooth consists of the crown, the neck, and the roots. Let's look at three scenarios of a tooth breaking or chipping. Option number one, you broke off the crown part right in half. That is, you are missing the upper half of your tooth. In this case, you can calmly go to the dentist and they will restore your tooth literally within an hour, 2 at most. And all of this is called tooth restoration or artistic tooth restoration. That is, the doctor will completely restore the upper part for you with fissures and cusps so that you won't be able to tell your tooth from a real one. The second case, you broke the tooth right down to the very neck. In other words, the tooth is almost invisible. Only small edges are visible through the gum. In this case, it is also possible to restore the tooth, most often therapeutically. That is, the doctor will place a special post, most often a fiberglass one, into your broken tooth and right on this post-like, on a kind of framework, will sculpt your tooth millimeter by millimeter, just like a sculptor. This process also takes no more than 1 to 2 hours, right in the dental chair. The third scenario is when you break your tooth all the way down to the root. In this case, the only solution is to remove the tooth roots. But I would recommend that in the event of such a root fracture, it's best to have an implant placed immediately after extraction. This will allow you to have a new tooth in as little as 3 or at most 6 months. If you continue to walk around with a fractured tooth root, it can lead to irreversible inflammatory consequences. The bone becomes infected, which, when the tooth is removed, will lead to a large bone defect, and you will have to restore the bone with grafting material or bone plastic surgery. And that means additional costs and time. Share your stories in the comments. Has anyone among your family or friends ever broken a tooth? What happens if they try to restore a tooth that's broken in half or down to the very neck? The consequences can be very serious. The first is a change in your bite. The second is a change in the antagonist tooth, which is the tooth that presses from above or below. These tooths become more susceptible to cavities, and an inflammatory process will develop much more quickly. I'd also like to talk about another type of tooth fracture. This is when you lose exactly half of your tooth. On one side, it seems like the tooth is still there, but if you look at it from another angle, half of the tooth is missing. In this case, most often the tooth also needs to be completely removed. And as I mentioned, it is best to place an implant here right away. An implant needs to be placed so that we can prevent the shifting of neighboring teeth as well as the opposing teeth, that is, the teeth above or below that press against our tooth hand, to avoid problems with jaw deformation. The changes that occur when a tooth is missing are not limited to the shifting of neighboring teeth or possible changes in your bite. They can also include headaches, changes in the length of the neck muscles, and sometimes even affect your posture. The cost of restoring a tooth when you have broken the crown in half ranges from 5 to 15,000 rubles. The cost of restoring a tooth when it is broken right at the gum line ranges from 10 to 20,000 rubles. And in the case of a root fracture, the price is for tooth extraction. The cost of tooth extraction ranges from 3 to 10,000 rubles. And if you choose so-called immediate implantation, that is implantation right after tooth extraction, the cost of placing an implant will be around 30 to 50,000. Subscribe to the channel to learn more facts about teeth. If you found the information useful, simply hitting the like button will make a huge contribution to the development of the channel. All the best to you. Take care of yourself and your loved ones. See you next time.